Hello and welcome to our webinar. Today we are talking about blogging for SEO. We have the absolute incredible Leah MacDaniel from Till Agency joining us, and she is going to talk to us about how to blog for SEO. So a lot of people are scared of blogging, a lot of people are scared of SEO, but we are going to put those two scary things together and make them unscary and make your business and your blog super findable, and it's going to be amazing. So I asked Leah yesterday, because that's when I met her officially, like online, when we were doing a test call, and I asked her for 3 interesting facts about her, and she blew my mind. One, she is a junk food vegan, which it sounds crazy, but she says that Philly is the mecca for junk food vegans. So if you find yourself as a junk food vegan as well, check out Philly. That's her recommendation. Another fact she shared is that she lives on a short bus with her husband, which is crazy. I've already talked to her a lot about that. If you connect with her on social media, you can ask her more questions about that. But the third fact is that she loves birds. Do not send her any bird paraphernalia. She is a minimalist. She does not want any of that stuff, but she loves birds. So her favorite bird is the Carolina wren, which I have no idea what that looks like. We're here in Arizona. Our state bird is the cactus wren. I had to Google that. It's small. It's adorable. So today's question, as you guys are filtering in here, is what is your favorite bird? And if you don't have a favorite bird, as I feel like many people don't necessarily have a favorite bird, you can just tell us what your state bird is or country bird. We have a hummingbird, which those are absolutely incredible. Hummingbirds are incredible. They're very cute. And penguin, solid. Emily Schwartz, welcome to the webinar. We do have a lot of roadrunners here, which if you ever watched those cartoons of like the Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote, the coyote and the roadrunner, you would think a roadrunner was a big bird, like an ostrich. It's not. It's like this big. It's very misleading how they made that cartoon. So if I just blew your mind, you're welcome. Robins, also beautiful. Someone from San Diego. I don't know what their bird is, but welcome. Quail, interesting that's your favorite animal, Jenna, or that's your favorite bird. I'm interested as to why quail. Oh, you love watching them run around. I love this. Penguins or falcons, very different from each other. Changed your desktop background to a penguin this morning. That's hilarious. I love it. You're ready for this webinar. Toucan, so great. A lot of quails. They are precious. Okay, well, as you come in continually, we would love to still hear about your birds. Leah is going to share a lot with us. She's going to have a presentation that lasts about 30 minutes or so. As she's going through, feel free to keep up in the chat. And if you have any questions, we will try to answer them the best that we can, but we will also write them down. And then when it's time for the live Q&A, then Leah will get to them. And she also has a slide in there where she will share her contact info. So if you are interested in contacting her with any questions that you may have, she's being super generous with her time and she would love to hear from you. So without further ado, Leah, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Oh, good. I'm not muted. Thank you so much for coming. I'm so excited to dive in. As Jihei said, I'm a huge bird nerd, and we'll be hearing more about that in the presentation. But yeah, let's dive in. Let's get started. Alrighty. So, as I said, I'm Leah MacDaniel, and I'm super excited to be here with you today, talking about one of my favorite topics to nerd out about, which is blogging for SEO. People come at SEO from all sorts of different angles, but SEO and content marketing is my specialty, and it's something that I could talk about for hours. So like Jihei said, I'm going to try to condense all this nerding down into a 30-minute presentation. So buckle up, friends. All right. So we have all sat through those webinars or master classes or whatever, where it sounds super interesting and useful, but you walk away an hour later and you're like, cool, what do I do with that? There's nothing that I can actually act upon. Well, this is not that webinar. I am going to show you my favorite and also super cheap way of doing keyword or topic research, walk you through the way that I craft SEO content, both for my own blog and for clients, give you the exact template that I use for putting that content together, and then answer all of your burning SEO content writing questions. All right. Jihei just made this super easy for you, but I wanted to start off with an icebreaker here. Let's do 2 truths and a lie. Hopefully you know how that works. I'm going to tell you 3 things. One of them is not true. So number 1, I am the queen of writing conclusions. Number 2, I live in a short bus. Number 3, I grew a successful photography business using primarily SEO. So what I want you to do is in the chat right now, go ahead and tell me which one is the lie. I'll give you just a second and then I'll go ahead and spoil it for you. All right, so like I said, I am a digital marketer, but I'm also an elopement photographer. And I learned all about SEO building my own photography business. And now I work as the in-house SEO specialist at Till Agency. My partner and I and all of our plants have lived for about a year in a tiny 100 square foot short bus. And here it is. I have never properly ended anything I've ever written, ever. You'll probably see that with this presentation. So my story is similar to a lot of entrepreneurs in that I decided to start my own business before really knowing what all that entailed. And I had to learn a lot very fast in order to make my business work. Everything from web design, SEO, copywriting, the whole kit. And the process of learning all of those essential marketing skills for my own business is what made me passionate about helping other creative business owners, that's you, to feel empowered to fearlessly market their own businesses. So let's stop talking about me and start talking about blogging. So here is a short and incomplete list of things I'm not talking about when I say blogging. Some of these things are great and can be a really good way of engaging with your audience and letting your customers get to know you, but they're probably not going to do much for your SEO. So the first thing is sharing personal stories from my life or experiences for the sole purpose of being entertaining or helping readers get to know me. The second thing is a title, a paragraph about an event, and 50 pictures. I call those photo stories. And I think for the longest time, photographers were told that's what we needed to be doing. That was like the gold standard for blogging, but not anymore. Like I said, those things can be great for kind of engaging with your customers once they're on your site, but they're probably not going to do much for your SEO unless you're really being strategic about it. The next thing is diary posts. Like today I got up and had avocado toast and then I calibrated my lenses or whatever. Those are probably not going to help your SEO. And the last thing that I'm not talking about when I say blogging is copying content from other people in my industry, moving a few words around and slapping my logo on it. That, friends, is plagiarism, and that's a big no-no. All right, so deep breath. We've arrived at the mindset slide. To be entirely honest with you, I am the first person to roll my eyes when people start talking about mindset. I generally consider myself to be pretty cold and logical, more Spock, less McCoy, more data, less Geordie. You get the picture. I'm an absolute nerd. But I generally don't spend much time in the realm of feelings and mindset and all that stuff. But content marketing really changed that for me. You really have to come at it from a place of abundance and wanting to give and help for the sake of giving and helping, and not because you're expecting any kind of return. I'll dive into that a little bit more later, but I wanted to kind of put it out there, and it's something to keep in mind as we roll into the next topic. So before we really get started, let me know in the chat what are some of the things that are keeping you from writing great SEO content? Like, what is it where you're like, okay, I know what I need to be doing, but I just can't for whatever reason? Let me know what your reason is in the chat, and we will definitely come back to that. All right, so this is kind of a dual purpose slide here. We're going to talk about this as a 3-step process, but each of these steps also kind of go with one of the things that I've heard from clients about why they can't write SEO content. So the number one thing that I hear from clients is that they don't blog because it's overwhelming. They don't even know where to begin figuring out what they should write about, which is topic research, which is the first thing we'll be diving into. Or if they know what they should write about, they aren't sure whether they're qualified to create a resource on the topic or how much information they should give away, which is something we'll talk about in the providing value section. The next thing I hear is, I'm not a good writer. Well, spoiler alert, creating an effective outline can really take a lot of pressure off of your writing skills. You create the outline based on the topics or keywords that you need to hit to effectively cover the topic and answer people's questions. And then writing the post really just becomes filling in the blanks. Like I said at the beginning, I'm not an amazing writer. I can't write a conclusion to save my life, but I can write the heck out of some SEO content. And I got to that place after learning how to outline my content effectively. The last hurdle for folks is actually publishing their content. There is so much like imposter syndrome and doubt just rolling around in all of our heads, making us second guess the quality and value of the content we create. And I'm going to go over my trick for not only making it easier to actually hit publish, but then to make sure that your content stays fresh and relevant so you can continue to feel great about it. All right, so I'm going to address just one quick question before we dive in here, and that is, what's the difference between keywords and topics? And that's a really big question, but for the purposes of this presentation, basically nothing. I'm going to use those terms pretty much interchangeably. As Google gets smarter, it gets better about grouping keywords together and knowing what things go with other things. And so the general SEO landscape is moving away from having to target very specific granular keywords and more towards topics and themes. So I'm going to be using these terms, topics, keywords, search queries, kind of all interchangeably. Knowing your keywords and specific search queries is still going to be important when you're optimizing your content, but topics and topic research are where we're going to start. So doing great topic research doesn't have to be complicated or expensive. You don't need one of those fancy, expensive pro-level subscription tools or an extensive knowledge of search trends. My favorite way of doing topic research involves a few free or nearly free tools and basically no learning curve. So the first thing here is Keywords Everywhere. And Keywords Everywhere is just a free browser plugin. I use it on Chrome. I'm pretty sure it works with other browsers, but I'm not positive. So that's a thing that you would want to check on, but I have to assume that it does. So the plugin itself is free. You do have to purchase credits, but they're super cheap. I think, so 1 credit equals 1 keyword, and I think it's like $10 gets you 100,000 credits. So $10 usually lasts me like 6 months with everyday professional use. It's basically free. They're super cheap. And once you have Keywords Everywhere set up and turned on, it delivers information on the search volume, the level of competition or difficulty, and search trends right on your Google search page, which I'll show you in a second. You can also use it in Google Search Console if you have that set up for looking at the volume and competition for queries that are already driving traffic to your site, as well as on other kind of search sites like Pinterest or Answer the Public. So it's a super valuable tool. Answer the Public is super fun. I learned about it before I really even got into SEO and was like, oh, this is so fun to see what people are searching for. But you use Answer the Public with keywords everywhere, and it goes from cute and fun to crazy powerful super fast. So you type in the topic that you're interested in. Make sure you're searching in the correct country. I think the default is the UK. And then you hit search, and it'll take a second to kind of tabulate. And then you hit to make sure that you're looking at it in the data mode and not the visualization mode. And then Keywords Everywhere will just crank out the search volume and competition for everything. Again, I'll show you this in a second, but it is so useful. And then you can just export all of those queries into a CSV and into a Google Sheet, and then you are well on your way to prioritizing your keywords. Let's see. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that this is the section where we'll have the most questions, and we will definitely come back to that because, like I said, I could talk about this stuff forever. But hang on to your questions, drop them in the chat, and we'll come back to them at the end. But I want to show you, so this is what Keywords Everywhere looks like on the SERP, search engine results page. So you'll see at the top, right under the search query, it shows you the volume and competition there. It also shows you the cost per click. But we're not going to be talking about that at all in this presentation. You don't really need it for doing keyword research for organic content marketing. So I'm just going to pretend that it doesn't exist, okay? So what we're looking at is the volume, the competition, and the search trends. And then you'll see over on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a little table of related keywords that Keywords Everywhere kicks out for you, which is super helpful. And then another thing to look at on this SERP is the People Also Ask section. So that's not specific to Keywords Everywhere. Google would show you that anyway. But those are basically going to be your long tail keywords. So if while you're doing your research, you see anything over in that People Also Ask section that's relevant to what you're looking at, definitely go ahead and collect the volume and competition data for those too and put them in your spreadsheet, because those are great. Those are absolute gold. And then here is a look at Keywords Everywhere on Answer the Public. So you put it into data mode and it just cranks out these lists of search queries related to the topic that you're searching for. And you'll see some of them have no search volume at all, but you can export them into a CSV and sort them really quickly from there. And this is just data gold. And then here's a look at what your spreadsheet might look like. So I went in. You're going to need to clear out some of the junk. I feel like any tool is going to give you irrelevant results. Go through, clean it up a little bit, sort it by volume, and like we're nearly there. This is super easy, and you've spent what, like 0.4 cents on it at this point. All right, so now you have this big spreadsheet full of keywords and search volume and competition data, and this is where the overwhelm starts to kick in, right, friends? Well, don't give in to the information overload. The process of whittling down that huge spreadsheet actually couldn't be easier. So the relative levels of volume and competition are going to vary a bit depending on the topics that you're specifically looking at. But the main idea is to find that sweet spot where relatively high search volume overlaps with relatively low competition. As a broad guideline, I'd look for competition scores lower than 0.5 and volume greater than 100 searches per month. And once you've identified those sweet spot queries in your spreadsheet, then you want to pop back over to Google and look at the top 3 to 5 organic results. So not the ads that might show up at the very top, but we're looking for the top 3 to 5 organic results. And make a note in your spreadsheet is honestly a great place to make these notes of what kind of results Google is showing, whether you're seeing a lot of videos or shopping results, or whether the top 5 results are all list posts, or if there are common themes that are coming up in those results. Go ahead and make a note about that in your spreadsheet. And also be thinking about ways that you could improve upon the existing content. If you don't see any ways that you could improve upon what's already ranking, either by adding a new perspective, a clearer explanation, better or newer data, etc., then you should maybe not have that topic at the top of your priority list. So, why is that? Well, let's take a step back and think a little bit about why Google does what it does. So, Google's priority is to provide the best possible search experience to searchers so that they continue to use Google for future searches, and Google can depend on them to be a stable base of eyeballs for showing ads to. But let's take the ads part out of it for a second. Google's goal is to provide people the absolute best search experience, which means they want them to find the best answer as quickly as possible on sites that are easy to use and pleasant and not spammy, etc. So, if you can't improve upon what Google is already showing, whether you can't improve upon the quality of the content or your site is not as fast, etc., then you're less likely to be able to outrank what's already there. The last thing to consider when deciding what to write first is what's going to be the easiest or the most exciting for you to write. I know people love this book, but you don't have to eat the frog, especially when you're just getting started with SEO content writing. You don't have to do the hard thing first. I'm going to say take permission from me right here, right now, to do what's easy and exciting and save the other stuff for later. There's so much to write about. You might as well get started with what is exciting to you. All right. Providing value, what it means and why it matters. So while we're on this slide, I want you to just imagine an expert. I don't care who it is. Maybe it's your dad and his weird encyclopedic knowledge of wristwatches, or that person you went on one date with a few years ago who spent the whole night talking about composting. Was that me? I'm sorry. Was that me? Or maybe it's your best friend who can identify the eyeshadow palettes that people are wearing just by glancing at them on the street, which is not me. Well, how do you know that person is an expert? Did they say to you one time, I'm an expert and now pay me and maybe I'll tell you something cool and smart? Or do you know they're an expert because they told you all they could about this thing that they're good at or excited about, whether you wanted them to or not? This expert probably gave you lots of detailed information, maybe even more information than you wanted or knew there was about this given topic, just because they're passionate about it and they get excited to share what they know with others. And I bet the next time you need to buy a wristwatch or decide to start a garden or need a fresh makeup look for your upcoming brand shoot, you know who you're going to ask right off the bat without them really having to say anything to you. Well, providing value in the context of content creation goes back to that abundance and service mindset that I was talking about earlier. You need to be willing to give away helpful, valuable, accurate, well-researched, well-written information, even though the vast majority of people who read it are never going to give you a dime. So what does providing value look like in practice? Like, how do you provide value in your content? So granted, this is not a webinar on content funnels or conversion funnels, rather. But this little simple guy is going to work for our purposes here. So people start at the top of the funnel where maybe they're vaguely aware of something. And then as they go through the process, they kind of narrow down to the point where they're willing to make a purchase. Well, have you ever Googled something that you were curious about, maybe not even sure if it existed, and then found yourself on a months-long trail of slightly more detailed searches and slowly learning more and more about that topic that eventually culminated in you making a purchase? Well, my friend, you have been funneled. And let me give you an example of this from real life. As you already know, I'm a huge bird nerd. I've had people tell me that they had to unfollow me on social media because I post too much about birds. Some of you are probably here. Thanks for coming, guys. So a few years ago, I moved to a different part of my home city, and I noticed that there were a bunch of different kinds of birds that I didn't see where I used to live. And so I went searching for the best bird ID app. And then after discovering the identities of all of these new birds that I was seeing, I went on to make countless searches about different bird calls, bird diets, bird nesting habits, bird migration patterns. What do you do when you find a baby bird on the ground? What kind of bird seed is best when you want to feed a variety of birds without having a whole bunch of different seeds and feeders? Hashtag minimalism. And then finally, the best bird feeder for getting as close as possible to birds so you can look at them without scaring them away. Well, during these months of searching, I found myself on the same small handful of sites over and over again. I came to know these different sites and prefer the writing style or the site design on one over the other, or trust the information that the third one gave more than the other two, etc. And one of these sites was a shop that sold, among other things, boutique wild bird supplies. They weren't an app developer or an educational foundation or a wildlife preservation fund or a bird sanctuary or anything like that. They were just a little shop that sells bird supplies. And when it came time for me to buy my weird little domed acrylic bird feeder, I bought it from them, even though it was about 50% more expensive than it was on Amazon or somewhere. And why? Because they had earned my trust over those months of answering all of my weird bird questions. I kind of felt like if I got it from them, I knew I was getting the right thing. And I kind of felt like I owed it to them after all of the time they had taken to answer all of my questions. So, let me know in the chat, what are some of the top of funnel questions that your customers have? So those kind of very broad, general questions that aren't maybe directly related to what you sell. Like there's not a clear, you have this question, so you need to buy this thing. What are some of those top of funnel questions that your customers have? Or if you don't have any that you can think of right now, bonus question is, what are some of the top of funnel searches that I made in my bird app story that boutique answered that led me to purchasing that weird bird feeder? I'll give you a minute to do that. All right, while you're dropping those questions in the chat, I know nobody likes writing outlines. We all want to go from the perfect idea to the perfect execution without any of the not fun, not sexy work in the middle. Outlining your blog posts, however, is a serious game changer. It takes you from throwing things at the wall to having a strategy behind what you're publishing. Plus, by breaking things down a little bit, it takes some of the overwhelm out of the process of content creation by breaking things down into more manageable pieces. Real talk, when I learned about proper outlining is when blog writing really clicked for me. I was trying to blog for my business before and was just skipping the outlining part because nobody likes writing outlines. But once I decided that that was actually something that I needed to do, that's when I started seeing my content ranking and the quality of my posts going up. And that's why I decided to share the actual outline template that I use for my own blogging as well as for my SEO clients, so that you can get started with something that's been proven to work and you don't have to figure it out on your own or go and reinvent the wheel yourself. This outline walks you through your topic and competitive research, finding your searcher intent. It has fields for your title and your URL slug, as well as some information on how to make those correct, as well as a place to outline and draft your content. You can get the template at this the URL at the bottom here, or I'll be sharing it with you again later. So don't worry if you can't catch it right now. But that's my free gift to you, and I know it will make a big difference in your content writing. So now you've got your outline, you filled it out, you copy and pasted everything into your blog. And now you've got this, well, it's probably not a big red button. It's probably a small gray button, but I'm going to say big red just to make it more dramatic. You've got this big red publish button just staring at you, just staring you down, just daring you to assume that you have the right to publish this content. Well, do you remember back in school when teachers used to always insist that you used a number 2 pencil instead of a pen, just because it's cleaner and easier to erase as opposed to like scribbling out a mistake in pen? Well, text on the internet, or on your blog in particular, is even easier to erase and change than something you wrote in a number 2 pencil. And it comes with the added benefit of not leaving that weird graphite dust all over the heel of your hand. The word published can feel really concrete. It can be really permanent and unchangeable. Published can feel like you're chiseling something into a slab of granite to be left there for the next 7 generations of internet trolls to pick apart. So instead of thinking about publishing your content, I like to think about it as floating it, like a whimsical little paper sailboat. If it starts to sink or gets caught up in a weird current, you can simply pluck it out of the water, make some structural changes, some reinforcements, and plop it back in. Even the most well-researched, well-outlined content can sometimes take an unexpected turn and start driving traffic from totally irrelevant search queries, or send an influx of weirdos to your mailing list, or just totally underperform. And that's okay. It happens. I like to let most of my content float for about 3 months before I go in and tweak it, unless I notice that something is going really wrong really fast, which honestly never happens. But letting your content float before you mess with it gives it time for Google to crawl it a few times, let it start getting some clicks, driving some traffic, collect enough data in your Google Search Console to see what kind of search queries it's showing up for before you go in and make changes. So if you were going to make changes to your content, 3 months down the line, some of the things you might do include selecting and emphasizing a different primary keyword or query. So if the thing that you focused on the first time around, maybe it just turns out that it's too high a competition or it's not getting enough search volume or something, you can go in and emphasize a different topic or a different query and kind of send your content off in a different direction. Or you could increase your keyword density or restructure the post content to better chase SERP features like featured snippets. You can add more or better data. You can add more or better photos. I tell people all the time, when I first started my blog for my elopement photography site, I was writing informational content about places that I hadn't shot yet. So I didn't really have like relevant photos to go with everything that I was writing. And so in those early days, all of the posts that I published had one image. They had one featured image, and then they were just text. And honestly, some of them still only have one image because they're ranking just fine as they are. I know a lot of photographers get hung up thinking that their blog posts have to be like mini portfolios. And when you get photos you can always add those in later. You don't have to let waiting for the perfect complementary content hold you up from publishing your content. So like I say, float it and then freshen it. Actually, I'm going to go back. So after you, hold on. So published is better than perfect. So it doesn't matter that your content isn't perfect when you hit publish. You want to have in your head that you can come back and change it later. I just wanted to make sure that was clear. So you got this. We've done super easy, super inexpensive content research. We started at the top of the funnel. We weighed our volume and our competition. You've assessed your ability to provide value and improve upon the existing content. And then once you've identified those priority topics, you went ahead and you made an outline. You gathered your target keywords. You created a heading framework that covered everything you needed to cover and guided you through writing that post. You drafted a search optimized URL slug and meta description, and then you copied and pasted that all into your blog. And then you hit publish. You weren't scared of the permanence of the word published. You just floated your content and planned to come back and revise it later. And you track your post performance and tweak them periodically to keep them fresh and working toward your goals. So we're almost at the end of this webinar, and by now most of the audience is probably divided into one of two camps. You're either thinking, whew, yeah, I got this. I have this under control. I can totally do this. This is not as scary as I thought it was. Or maybe you're in the other camp and you're like, oh my gosh, there is so much more to SEO than I thought there was. This is not for me. This is not my bag. And if you're in the latter group, you're totally not alone. We help tons of creative business owners with their SEO, whether you just want someone to research and outline content and you can take it from there, or you want a full managed SEO campaign where we're helping you with every step of the way, or something in between, we can probably help you out. Now, I'm no good at sales pitches. I don't work in sales. But I am really good at helping business owners reach their SEO goals. And to be totally honest, it's completely free to set up an audit and a consultation call with me. So why not? Just reach out and I might be able to help you out with stuff. So here is my name and my contact information. And then down at the bottom, there's that link again to the free blog outline template. So definitely go ahead and grab that. I'm sure Jihei will share that again later as well. And now we can roll into questions. So that's it for my presentation.
Leah, that was incredible. I just, I took so many notes personally. It's amazing. There's a lot. So friends, if you joined in late or if you were feeling overwhelmed, this is recorded. You can come back to this link, eat some lunch or something, and then come back and rewatch it. And obviously we'll have a blog post associated with this, and then we'll share the other things that Leah talked about. It feels like a lot. And I know earlier when you asked the questions what are some things that, you are hung up with? I think you answered a lot of those questions. I hope people are feeling empowered with what you shared. But besides giving people more time, which is some of the things that people said they couldn't, why they can't blog, I think you've really, empowered people to maybe even get some of their time back where they can feel like they're blogging for a purpose, right? All right. So one of the questions we did have was, how do you feel about Uber Suggest? There were some people in the chat that enjoy it, but they want to know what your opinion is on it.
Yeah, so I have tried Uber Suggest. It's one of the tools that I have tried all of them. Ubersuggest, Mangools, Ahrefs, SEMrush. And to tell you the truth, I keep coming back to keywords everywhere. And part of that is because it's simple. I can get really overwhelmed if there are too many tools and too many pieces of information in front of me. And I think that a lot of business owners are in that same place where it's just information overload. You're getting too much that you feel like you have to act upon, and then you end up doing nothing because it's too much to deal with. And so I really like Keywords Everywhere, and I recommend it to everybody because it's simple. It just does one thing. That said, if you're already using Ubersuggest or Mangools or SEMrush or one of those other tools, and you've got it under control and you like using it and whatever, perfect, go for it. I would say the biggest thing is just to pick one tool and stick with it, because things like the competition score or whatever are going to vary from tool to tool. And that's a thing that hangs people up. They're like, hang on, Keywords Everywhere said this would be easy, and Ubersuggest said it would be hard. And it's like, just pick a tool and stick with it. I personally like Keywords Everywhere, but just use what works for you.
I love it. Another question, which I'm not sure if you'll be able to answer or not, but we'll see, is do SEO companies need to access the back end of your Show It account website or just admin access to WordPress?
It depends what you want them to do. So if your SEO person is just working on your blog, then they probably only need admin access to your WordPress blog. For my clients who are on Show It, I do a lot of on-page optimization as well. And so I do have access to their actual Show It account, so I can go in and make changes to the content on their pages. It really depends on what you want your SEO person to help you with, because they are kind of two different levels of access within Show It.
Leah, I'm sorry I misjudged that you would absolutely be able to answer that question. Of course you knew the answer to that. Okay, I love it. Another question is, you mentioned you come back to a post to see how it performs. What types of things are you looking for to see how it's performing?
So the big thing that I will look for, and again, I use simple free tools for this. I generally look at Google Search Console. I'd see whether it's driving traffic, where it's ranking, what type of queries are driving traffic to that post. So if you're seeing that people are landing on your post after searching for things that are kind of irrelevant, that's not good. If it's not driving very much traffic, like if people aren't landing on that page and going to your site, that's something that you might want to improve. And then, just where it's ranking in Google, and Google Search Console can show you your average ranking.
Love it. Okay, this is pretty broad. So I'm going to ask it, and then maybe you could just give us like one thing you would start today. So someone asked, I just want to start online marketing. So like, what is one step they can do today to just get the ball rolling?
Yep. So the first thing that I would do is make a list of those top of funnel questions that your customer has, because those can inform everything that you do with organic or paid marketing. So just brainstorm, do a little bit of research. What are the things that people are searching for that lead them to the service or product that you offer?
So good. I love that. Okay. Another question is, does Google Analytics do the same thing as Search Console?
So Google Analytics can also show you Search Console data. Google Analytics also does a bunch of other stuff though. And a lot of times people get overwhelmed when they first get started using Google Analytics, which is why I don't personally recommend it. Again, one of the big things that I hear from folks is that they're overwhelmed by all the numbers and data and things that they can do. And so Google Search Console gives you the information that you need without a whole bunch of other stuff. Again, if you are already used to using Google Analytics, Google Search Console data is also available in there. So go for it. But you don't need to be using Google Analytics, in my opinion.
Okay. Very interesting. I love that. Leah, I'm pretty sure you blew everyone's minds today, so thank you for that.
Just with how fast I was talking.
The sheer amount of magical content you threw into your presentation was out of control. I'm just going to give a plug to Spark, which is a conference that Show It is hosting here in the lovely land of Arizona. You might see a cactus wren here. But Leah is coming, and she's not even a speaker. She's just coming to enjoy the magic of Spark. But if you come, you can meet Leah and maybe look at some birds and talk about SEO. Who knows? It's going to be amazing. The fine folks from Till Agency, Davey and Krista will be there also. It's going to be a great time. So if you're interested in coming to this great conference, because I know a lot of you guys are like, oh man, this webinar is so great. Spark Conference is like a webinar in person with more speakers and more amazing people. So if you want to connect with people, not just online, but in person, we definitely want to invite you to Spark. So join us in November. I'll put a link for that. It's basically just spark.showit.co. But Leah, thank you so stinking much for just how much love and wisdom you poured into this presentation. We are so thankful for you. Friends, walk away with this. 1, be audacious and hit publish, right? And do something today. And then also try to get out there and enjoy the beauty of what's out there, like, birds. And maybe don't send too many weird bird pictures to Leah, but I don't know, she also kind of likes them. But Leah, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Till Agency, for sharing her with us. And friends, we're here for you. We want your businesses to succeed. We want your blogging efforts to be found by Google and other search engines. So don't overthink it. Go ahead and open up WordPress or whatever you blog on and do the thing. Do your little top of funnel questions, answer people's questions, and get found. So Leah, thanks again for being with us. Friends, thank you for joining us today, and we'll catch you next time.